Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. This is So What with Ellen March. Welcome, and I hope you're having a great day so far. I am really excited about today's episode because we are going to be going over a super fun Halloween project. Now, I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but I know there are some warnings, suggestions, things like that going out regarding Halloween and trick-or-treating. This project, thankfully, is something that you can create for your front door, whether you are having trick-or-treaters or not. So this will just add to your decor, give you a little bit of spook factor, and even if you can't open your door to trick-or-treaters, hopefully they are still allowed to go around and collect candy maybe on your front porch or something like that near your mailbox. I don't really know how it's going to work, but I just really am crossing my fingers that it will work on some level. So this is our trick or treat door hanger. It's a little quilty project that you can hang on your front door. I'll show you a picture of it here. And we're going to go over the basics of this project today. So as you can see, it features a little bit of embroidery. Now, you can do this embroidery by hand. You can do free motion embroidery, or you can do machine embroidery. So really, no matter what type of sewing machine you have, you can do this project. And all the files for this, including the full tutorial with the step-by-step photos and instructions, as well as the hand embroidery or free motion template and the machine embroidery design files, are all in the link that I added to the description of today's post. So that will take you to our free projects page where you will find this as well as lots of other free projects, design downloads, fun things like that. So that is where you want to go to download the project today to get all the full instructions. But I'm going to go over sort of just the basic how-tos, if you will, and give you some of my tips and tricks that I discovered while going through this project. So that's what we're going to go over today. And as you can see, the design itself in the center there is two thread colors. There's a white and there's a black. And I actually switched the colors for my sample because the design indicates that you would use black thread for the trick and treat and that little bird, and then white thread for the word or. So I just swapped those simply because I was using that black fabric and I wanted the words and the design to really pop. So just keep that in mind as you're working through the design, that your machine will tell you that the thread colors are switched. So that is why, and that is what I did. Also, this project features some really easy quilting. And the quilting is done with 12 weight cotton thread. It's the cotton Petites thread by Sulky, which we really love using for handwork applications, but you can also use it in your machine. So I'm going to go over that as well today. And I swapped between a bunch of different thread colors that are featured in our Halloween sampler set, and that is today's giveaway. So for all of you out there who are liking, sharing, commenting on today's post, and be sure to like our Sulky page as well if you haven't already, I will be choosing a winner at random to receive the 12 weight Cotton Petites Halloween sampler. So this includes 7 spools of our high quality 12 weight thread in all these great colors that are perfect for Halloween projects. So you could see your black and white is in there, and then a bunch of different vibrant, great colors for Halloween. So I simply went back and forth and used every single color in that palette for this project and for the quilting. So be sure to like, comment, send me your questions so that we can address those periodically throughout today's episode. And I will go through the little demo here. So all of you saying hello, thank you so much for chiming in this morning. Again, I appreciate you joining me. There are a lot of questions already, so we will address those momentarily. So what I like about this project first and foremost is, like I said, you can create the embroidery no matter your skill set, no matter your machine, okay? If you have the very basic sewing machine, you should still be able to drop the feed dogs on your machine and move the fabric yourself rather than having the feed dogs move it, and do free motion work. So the first tutorial I'm going to go over is actually for the hand embroidery version. Some of those principles are going to apply also for the free motion embroidery. So let's talk about prepping the fabric for the embellishment. Okay, let me go ahead and show you. I put together a photo of the handwork supplies, okay? In there is a pack of the sulky stick and stitch. Now, if you're doing free motion embroidery or handwork, you will want to pick up the stick and stitch. Why? Because you can run this through your printer, okay? So the design download that is free, you will isolate that page and print it directly onto the stick and stitch. So you want to make sure there is a fabric side of stick and stitch, there is a paper side of stick and stitch. The paper side is what is covering up the adhesive, okay? You want to be sure to print on the fabric-like side, and then you can stick that directly to your fabric and sew right through it. So for free motion, you still want to print on your stabilizer so that you have something to follow when you are moving your fabric under the presser foot, okay? So that is how you're going to transfer the design template to your fabric. And then guess what? It completely washes away when you are finished, leaving no trace. Love it. All right, so for handwork, I also am showing this hand embroidery needle. I have linked to a great hand embroidery needle that we carry at sulky.com in the description of today's post. So if you are grabbing up some of these supplies, don't forget your needles, okay? I have put the handwork needles as well as the machine needles that I'm going to talk about in a moment. And then these are the 7 spools of thread that I used for the handwork and for the quilting. All right, you also need your main supplies, all right? Now, this is what you need regardless of which method for embellishment you are doing. So you, of course, need fabric, you need a little bit of batting, you need your machine needles, some KK2000, which is our temporary spray adhesive. Love this product. And then you need your construction thread. Now, for construction thread, I like to use the 50 weight cotton and steel thread by Sulky. All right, comes in a ton of colors. You can find it in neutrals, so you can grab up a whole pack of neutrals. So you've got your gray and your tan and your white and your black and that type of thing, just to have those on hand. But this is a really, really great, high quality, what I like to consider the Sulky multi-purpose thread. All right, so you're gonna need this stuff regardless of which method you choose, like I said. So for hand embroidery, like I said, you print your design directly onto the stick and stitch. You can see, here it is coming out of my printer. Looks great. Now, a lot of people ask, what type of printer can you use, inkjet or laser? It works on both. I do recommend setting your printer settings for like a draft setting for the ink, just so that you don't have to kind of worry about the ink not drying or bleeding a little bit on the fabric side of the stabilizer. I have never experienced that, but just to err on the side of caution and to save your printer ink, really, you can just print on the draft setting. The cool thing about this is you can also print in color. So if you are doing a more elaborate handwork design and you want to remind yourself which color to use where, you can print this in color, and then as you're doing your handwork, you will know when to switch thread colors. But like I mentioned, this really is just a black and white design, so it's printed in black and white. All right, so once it comes out of the printer, looks great. You're going to cut out your motif a little bit beyond the design. I would give myself about an inch beyond the design perimeter, and that way it's also stabilizing my fabric a little bit. I didn't use a embroidery hoop for this at all, and I'll show you my sample in a minute, but the stick and stitch does two things. It transfers your design as well as keeps your fabric nice and taut during embroidery. That's really great for free motion work as well. All right, for free motion, you can also add an additional piece of stick and stitch on the back side of your fabric, essentially sandwiching your fabric between the two layers of stabilizer, and then when you go to move it under the presser foot, you have a lot of stability and you're not warping, stretching, or wrinkling your fabric as you go. And like I said, everything's going to wash away when you're done. All right, so here I have it cut out, and you can see then it is just a matter of peeling that paper backing away and revealing the tacky surface that you're going to stick onto your fabric. If you have never used this stabilizer, get some. I just need to mention also, it is on sale right now. 25% off, you can grab yourself some stick and stitch. All right, so here I am just hand embroidering the design. Now, I used a big honkin' needle just so you could see it in these photos. This needle is bigger than the ones that I recommended in today's post. Just keep that in mind, it's for photography purposes. So I did a simple back stitch for all of the lettering, and then satin stitches or fill stitches, like a long and short stitch for the bird and for the little flag that goes underneath the word or. All right, so I'm just gonna go over a back stitch really quickly for those of you who are beginners or just need a little bit of a refresher. So you will start, and I do want to mention that this 12 weight thread acts as 2 strands of traditional embroidery floss. So for a typical design that would require 2 strands, you only need 1 strand of sulky 12 weight. So it's just a lot less to contend with, plus it comes on a spool. Also, 12 weight cotton petites, also on sale right now. All right, so you will start your stitch, and actually I'm going to go off of my design and stitch very large stitches so you can see. Your first stitch is going to come up from the fabric wrong side towards the right side. Let's see if I can do this upside down. And you're going to take 1 stitch length forward. Again, I'm stitching a very long stitch so you can see it. You will stitch very short stitches for the lettering of this design. Now you're going to come up about a stitch length beyond where you just went in. Maybe you could see it better that way. And go back into the hole you just came out of. So essentially, you're creating a straight line of stitches, and you go all the way across. Now, when you are hand sewing along those curves for the R and the C, things like that, you want to shorten up your stitch length a little bit around those curves so that you have a nice smooth curve as you're going around. All right, so once your hand embroidery is complete, you will make sure that your beginning and end thread tails are woven into the wrong side of the stitching. What do I mean by that? Here I have left, let's see if I can find it, a long thread tail at the beginning of my first stitch. So what I will do, take my needle out, is I will thread that thread tail back into the needle. I'm on the wrong side here. And then I will go through a few stitches to weave it into the back of the design. That is so that I don't have any knots on the work and it lays nice and flat. So you're really just weaving that thread tail in through a few of those stitches that you created. Now, once everything is secure and your design is how you would like it, take it to the sink and you are going to run the stick and stitch under running water. What works really great is if you have like a kitchen sprayer or even a bathroom sprayer, just because it provides a little bit of agitation onto the stabilizer. The thing you don't want to do is just submerge the work and let it sit in a pool of water. Why don't you want to do that? Well, you're running the risk of the stabilizer lifting up and kind of shifting to another part of the fabric, and your ink, if you used a pencil or pen to transfer your design onto the stick and stitch, that could lift up and go and settle on another part of the fabric. Now, if you notice that that's happening, you can rinse it clear before you move to the next step. But just as general rule, precaution, you want to rinse it under running water, all right? And you will be amazed at how it just rinses completely cleanly from your stitching. And then you are left with your lovely design on your center fabric. All right, so if you've got questions about the hand embroidery, keep those coming. I'm going to address those in a moment. Lots of people saying hello. Thank you for joining me. Okay. I'm going to go through now. Let me see if I can catch up with my own self. Oh, there was our stitching. All right. Now we're going to talk machine embroidery. Okay. So the machine embroidery for this is, I mean, it really cannot be simpler than this design. So what I used, now I used a relatively lightweight quilting cotton. I would even go as far as to say this is like a cheapo broadcloth, but you could use any quilting cotton weight. What I backed it with was Sulky Soft and Sheer. Soft and Sheer is a cutaway stabilizer, and the reason I was using it is because this fabric is so lightweight, I actually want the stabilizer to remain on the entire fabric piece when I go to construct my little wall hanging. This way, when I'm hanging it on the door, it has stability throughout its entire life. It's not going to start to sag. The embroidery will stay nice and crisp. So I wanted the stabilizer to stay with the fabric. So you want to be sure to cut a piece big enough for your entire fabric piece and then hoop the entire piece of fabric. All right. Now, this design, I wanted to see how it would do with the 12 weight thread, because yes, you can also embroider with 12 weight thread. Now you need a needle that is big enough to accommodate the thread without being too big to pierce holes in this lightweight fabric. All right, so a 116 top stitch or even universal needle is going to work with this fabric. So I tested it out using the 12 weight cotton petites, and this is what happened. It looks pretty great. I had the design digitized for 12 weight thread, so the design isn't too dense. The stitches are a little bit elongated. However, you can see there are certain portions of the lettering that got a little bit thick in areas, like for example along this R, right? It almost looks a little bit bubbly. Now, this doesn't bother me with this type of design because after all, it is a Halloween design and it's a little quirky, and that doesn't really bother me, especially since the inconsistency was across all of the letters. Now, I really think that that has to do with, I was probably sewing it too quickly, and it just despite the precautions taken in the digitizing process, it probably needed a little bit better underlay to support those big wide stitches. So I then did it for 30 weight thread and stitched it out. And you can see the difference here. This is my final sample. This is the 30 weight thread. You can tell the lettering is just crisper and nicer, right? It's very consistent. All the letters look great. So for this particular design, the 30 weight worked out better. Now, I do really like how the bird was filled in with the 12 weight. It's consistent. The stitches look great. They look balanced. So I could have swapped that out for the bird and for the little flag part and kept the lettering with 30 weight. Lettering, you know, that you want to be really crisp. Just as a general idea, I would go down to a lighter weight thread, especially if I really want great definition with lettering. For example, if I'm doing a quilt label and the lettering is going to go really, really small, instead of using a 40 weight rayon, I will actually use a 60 weight poly light thread for that. Now, that also depends on the type of lettering you're using. This lettering is not line art. It's little tiny satin stitches, okay? If it was line art, the 12 weight would have worked great. It would have provided excellent coverage, it would have popped off the surface, and it would have been fantastic. But since these are little satin stitches, it looked better with the 30 weight. So, sew out your design, use the 30 weight thread. For 30 weight, I recommend a 90-14 needle. You can use a 90-14 embroidery. We have a great embroidery assortment pack, Organ Needles assortment pack, that is great for that purpose. All right, so here is just my design in progress, and you can see that I've got to clip my jump threads before I swap my thread colors and at the very end of my design. I like to make a habit of clipping my jump threads on the right and wrong side of the work just to keep things nice and tidy. And again, you don't have little bumps on the underside of your fabric from those jump threads going from letter to letter or motif to motif. So I clip them on the top, then I remove the hoop, keep everything hooped so it's nice and taut, flip it over, and clip those little jump threads. I like to use one of these little snips for that. It's curved, so it goes off of the top of the surface of your hooped fabric, and super inexpensive. We have these at sulky.com, and this is what I like to use for clipping all those little jump threads. Okay, so after your embroidery is complete, it becomes time to add your border fabric to this. You can go through your stash, find any kind of Halloween colored or Halloween themed prints, and go to town. You don't need very much of your coordinating fabrics to complete this, so just keep that in mind. All right, before I continue with the construction, I'm just going to make a note of where I am here. I'm going to address some of the questions that have come in. If you have any questions regarding machine embroidery, I didn't really go over the free motion steps quite in depth. So if you have questions about that or want more information, I can go into that as well. Okay. All right, Shirley says, nice to hear about the different weights of thread and associated needles. I think a lot of people get hung up on that, and if you can somehow get it ingrained in your mind that the lower number the thread, the thicker it is. So the bigger needle size you're going to need. That is really the rule of thumb, okay? So the higher number of thread, the lighter weight it's going to be, okay? All right, Sandy says, what a fun Halloween design. I love Halloween. Halloween is just the greatest holiday to sew for. Whether you're making costumes for someone or just kind of making some fun home decor, there are no rules when it comes to Halloween. You can be as weird, as gross, as funny as you want. And isn't that the best? All right. Okay, Tina is asking, what did you suggest for hand embroidery and can you run it through the printer to get your design? Okay, so what I was talking about for the hand embroidery is sulky stick and stitch. And yes, it is printable. Make sure when you're printing it that you put it into your printer so that it will print on the fabric-like side. It's not actual fabric, it's kind of like compressed fibers that will just wash away when you are done. But make sure you're not printing on that paper side because that's what you're going to remove to stick it to your project. So, all right. Keep in mind too, anybody who comments, likes, shares today's post is eligible to win our great giveaway today, which is the 7 spools of sulky cotton petites. This is our Halloween sampler that I'm featuring today, and you're definitely going to want to win that. But everyone is really a winner because we've got 25% off the Cotton Petites thread and 25% off of the stick and stitch. So give it a try. If you haven't used it before, you will absolutely love it. So I'll just briefly go over the free motion steps. I don't have images of that because I did not do a sample that way. So have you all done free motion before? Give me a thumbs up if you have. Let me know how experienced you are with it. Free motion, like I said before, basically means you are lowering the feed dogs of your sewing machine. And since there are no longer feed dogs that will grip the bottom of your fabric and feed it through under the presser foot, you have to do all of the movement. So you will lower your feed dogs. You will also use a spring-loaded embroidery foot. Sometimes these are just called a free motion foot. So you do need to have a different foot in order to do the free motion. This is because you want your foot to be a little bit raised, okay, so that it doesn't grab on or inhibit the upper fabric from moving while you are sliding it underneath the presser foot. If you do not have that specialty presser foot, you should be able to lessen the presser foot pressure. So consult your sewing machine manual to learn how to do this, okay? Basically, that will just lift your presser foot higher above the fabric surface so that you have more room to kind of play around and move the fabric while you're going. So when you have your stick and stitch printed and on your fabric, like I said, that also acts as stabilizer. So in that case, I would not trim around the design. I would leave the whole sheet, place it on the fabric, and then you have something to grab onto while you are sewing, all right? You can also try just going over the letters free motion style, and then maybe adding the little motifs by hand. So you can kind of practice a couple different techniques while you're doing this smaller scale design. All right. Let's see if we have any more questions. Lots of people using the 12 weight thread. I'm so excited to hear that. Oh, I did mention, so yes, of course you can sew by hand using it. But the great thing is that unlike an embroidery skein, this comes on a spool, so you can put it on your sewing machine and also sew with it. Like I said, you want about a 116 needle, and the type of needle is going to depend on the technique that you are doing. All right, so for the quilting for this, let me go back and we will move on with the project instructions. All right, so before I get to the quilting, we have to put it together, right? We have to create our little quilt sandwich. Now, you'll notice I did not add any binding to this, okay? You certainly can. If you would rather add a cute little binding strip here and finish this off the way that you would normally do a quilt, then by all means start quilting now. Layer your top pieced fabric with your batting and your backing. Here's my cute little backing fabric. Quilt it the way that you want, and then add your little binding. This is not very large, so you can complete this in an afternoon. You can really have fun with the quilting. You can do some echo quilting around the design itself and then make that go out towards the edges. You could do computerized quilting design of little witches' hats, something like that. Whatever floats your boat. If you want to do the traditional quilting method of quilting and then binding, by all means. For me, in order to keep this extra simple, I basically constructed it like I would a pillow, except instead of stuffing it, I made it a flat quilt. And by that, I mean I did the turn and flip method, I want to say. You all know what that is. So here I have my backing fabric, and I am adhering it to the batting using the KK2000. Then I put the front right side facing the backing, and I sewed around all four edges, leaving myself an opening for turning. Then I turn it right side out, making sure that my batting is between both of those layers, and then I just simply turn my little opening toward the wrong side. Now, I don't want to forget, you need a way to hang this on your front door, right? So all I did was I made a little ribbon loop. I just had a piece of grosgrain ribbon in my stash. I made a little ribbon loop, and before I sewed that upper edge, I pinned it to the top so that the loop is facing towards the work, and then sewed that when I was sewing the perimeter. So don't forget your little hanging loop. If you also want to do a hanging sleeve, by all means, do whatever you prefer in order to hang your project. All right. Oh, also, don't forget to clip your corners so that you have nice little corners to work with here. Clip your corners before turning right side out. And if you need to do any cleanup of your edges, clip your corners, and then you can take your rotary cutter and just kind of clean up the edges, and you could trim down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance or even an 1/8 inch for a really nice edge. And actually, if you do go to about an 1/8 of an inch, that gives you a little bit of a raised edge, and it almost looks like you have a little piping, like a little piped edge around the whole thing, which is kind of cute. Okay, so here's the little opening that I had, and I just pinned it together, and then I edge stitched the entire thing. Okay, that gives me just a little more security. My opening is closed, and now I can really have fun with the quilting. So for the quilting, oh, this is me edge stitching, all right. For the quilting, like I said, I used the 12-weight cotton Petites, and I just went through all the remaining colors. I put the white and the black aside, and I just switched off all those colors and did straight line quilting along the entire piece. And there we have it. There it is hanging. I cheated it out a little bit along that edge so you could really see all of the colors of the quilting in that photo. All right, so super easy. You can do little mini quilts like this. Obviously, you can put any design you want to in the center. So as you know, the different holidays come up, you could put a Thanksgiving design in here and change up your fabrics based on what's in your stash. You could put a little Christmas message in the center and do that for the Christmas holiday. You could really take this through the entire year and showcase so many different designs this way on these little door hangers, I call them. This is a great little alternative to a wreath. And after I made this, I thought, you know what would have been really awesome, hindsight, is stitching this design in sulky, glowy thread. Okay, so then when you close up your door on Halloween night, your little message glows in the dark. That would have been so great, right? So glowy thread is great for embroidery. You just really have to remember to not touch your iron to it, okay? It will melt from the heat. So you want to be sure to really press your fabric really well before you do the embroidery so that all you have to do after you take it out of the hoop is just press out, you know, your hoop marks a little bit from the wrong side. All right, I've got lots of questions coming in, so let's address some of them. Okay, let me see if I can catch up here. Okay, Ursula says, I find KK2000 gums up my needle. I like sulky stick and stitch instead. Great product. So a couple of things here. Now, I haven't had a problem with the KK2000 gumming up my needle, but there are some ways to remedy this if you find that that is a problem for you, or if any of the sticky stabilizers prove to be problematic for you. So on the one hand, we have organ needles that are anti-glue. They are anti-glue embroidery needles. That is what they are called. And honestly, I do not know how they are manufactured, but somehow they do not result in any stickiness during your embroidery. So definitely check that out. You can also use a little bit of thread and or needle lubricant. It's called Sewer's Aid. We have this at sulky.com, very inexpensive. You can do this for your handwork applications as well as at the machine. So if you're finding, especially if you are doing the free motion and you have a layer of stick and stitch on the back of the fabric as well as the top, that sandwiching method I was talking about, and you're finding that the needle is getting a little bit gummed up throughout your free motion embroidery work, put a tiny little dab of this on the needle, okay? It's also a great tip for working with metallic threads because of the friction that metallic threads produce at high-speed embroidery. It's great to have a little bit of this lubricant on your needle itself. It also really helps threading the needle. And when you're doing handwork, you can apply a little bit onto your needle, which I seem to have lost now, and it'll glide right through. So this is another great little product. If you are adding things to your cart, just grab one of those. Like I said, it's relatively inexpensive. Okay. Oh, Kathy says she made the bat wall hanging into a table runner. So a few weeks ago, I did a demo about a bat wall hanging, and I quilted it with the glowy thread that I was just talking about. So if you are interested in that, you can find our previous So What videos on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/sulkythread. You can find all of our So What episodes there. And you can just find the bat table runner one, but that is also a blog post at blog.sulky.com. So if you happen to miss that one, you can catch it. All right. Lavon says that design will look great in black if I wanted to do it on orange. Great idea. Just swapping up the fabric, make it your own. You know, we're really just teaching or going through sort of the recipe, and then you get to make it your own by switching out fabrics, by switching out threads, by having fun with it. So, all right, lots of people saying nice prize. Again, for liking, commenting, and sharing today, our giveaway is 7 spools of Sulky 12-weight cotton Petites thread, our Halloween sampler. And speaking of giveaways, I hope you have all entered our amazing National Sewing Month sweepstakes. If you go to sulky.com, there will be a little pop-up that comes up when you go to the website saying enter our giveaway. And you don't want to miss this, okay? It's over $2,100 worth of sewing goodies, including a Husqvarna Viking Amber Air serger, all right? Also, a huge assortment of your favorite Sulky products. We've got our Sewist Stabilizer Bundle, our brand new Polystar thread. You'll get a 6-pack of that. And the cotton and steel thread I was talking about that I like to use for multi-purpose sewing, a 6-pack of this as well. So there are some other goodies too. Scissors and rotary cutter from Havel's, a fat quarter bundle of brand new cotton and steel fabric. So tons of stuff. Make sure you are entered for that. We've got a little over a week left on that contest. It runs until the end of September, and then we will pick a winner. So excited. Maybe I will even pick a winner during So What, because nothing brings me more joy than telling someone they have won something. It is the greatest. If any of you have ever gotten the chance to do it, I mean, I think I get more excited than the actual winner. It just gives you all the feels. All right. Linda is asking, what does the petite mean? Smaller amount of thread on each spool. So, sort of. Since it is such a heavier weight thread, we can only really fit about 50 yards on that spool. Essentially, it's a small snap spool, and I'm thinking that that played into the name of the Petites a little bit. I was not with Sulky during the time of the inception of that thread, so I can't speak entirely to it, but that's what I gather. And you know, when you're doing handwork, and even a project like this where I used all of the spools, you know, you're not using very much. Now, if I was using the 12 weight for an entire embroidery design and there were lots of fill stitches, I would want to get several spools of the Petite, but you can also get the 12 weight cotton in larger king spools as well. All right, and yes, again, all of the 12 weight cotton Petites are 25% off right now, as well as the great stick and stitch that I love so much. I go through so much of this. It's a really good thing I am an employee, okay? Because I would go broke buying the stick and stitch alone. I love the stuff. I use it for so many things. I do want to mention too that if you are a beginner and you have not done actual quilting yet, maybe you've pieced together a quilt top and sent it somewhere else for the quilting. Maybe the quilting part intimidates you. I know when I first started making quilts, after all that work piecing together all of those pieces of fabric, the thought of quilting it and making a mistake was like too much to bear. But I discovered in something like straight line quilting or even free motion quilting, for free motion, you can draw your quilting design on the stick and stitch. Let's say you want to do big hearts or smaller hearts across, you know, a length. Then you can place this on your finished quilt top with all of your layers on your quilt sandwich and sew right through it. And when you are done with the quilting, you would bind your quilt and then you can throw it in the washing machine, provided that your quilt is washable. All the stick and stitch will go away. No one will have any idea that you used this cheater method to quilt your quilt. For beginners who want to try quilting, but maybe not a design, maybe that's a little too much, for something like this, where you are doing these straight lines, you can cut strips of the stick and stitch, cut equidistant strips, place them on your wall hanging, and you can either sew right down the center of each strip, sew along either side of each strip, or both to get your straight lines. And again, rinse it away when you are done and you've got completely straight lines. All right? No worrying about, oh, do I look at the presser foot? Do I need a quilting gauge? None of this. No marking on your fabric, just using the stick and stitch. So it's good for so many different things. Francine is sold. She's grabbing herself some stick and stitch. Good for you. I think you're going to love it. Okay, Judith is asking, how do you do free motion satin stitches? Well, it's a little bit more complicated, of course. If you want to do equidistant satin stitches and you know, make sure that your fill stitch looks like an embroidery design, free motion isn't really going to achieve that. Free motion is a little bit more of a sketchy look. In fact, Joyce Drexler, founder of Sulky, used to, or still does, call it thread sketching, okay? So in order to fill in an area with fill stitches, you'll basically just be going back and forth, kind of inside where you drew your little motif on that stick and stitch. Now you can try your hardest and go really slowly and map out your stitches to make sure they're all the same length to get that really consistent satin stitch look. But for something like this, for the lettering, instead of doing satin stitch, which is what your machine embroidery design is going to do, I would just do straight stitching. You could do 2 or even 3 layers of straight stitching along the lettering for free motion. And then when you go to do your bird and the little flag, you'll literally just be going back and forth with your fabric until you have filled that entire area. So I hope that makes sense. Colleen has never tried free motion. Honestly, I don't do it very often. I consider myself very beginner. I think it is a very, I don't know, it takes a lot of patience. Let's say I'm not the most patient sewer. I like to finish a lot of things, I guess I should say. There are some very fantastic artists out there. Chris Eichner, she has worked with Sulky over the past however long, okay, and she does some amazing artistry with needle and thread. She has contributed a number of blog posts for us, and you can find some of her great artwork featuring Sulky threads and her amazing free motion work. So really, it is a skill to continue honing, and it's a great thing to keep practicing. Once you get really good at it, you know, it's just like anything else. It becomes obviously much easier. But even just free motion quilting straight lines, or adding your signature to your quilting at the bottom corner of a quilt. You know, you can practice free motion just by writing your name while you're holding on to the fabric. I find that's a really great way to practice because you're so used to your name and how your hand forms those letters. So it's almost easier to do that free motion as practice for how fast you should go, how the stitches need to keep up with how fast you go. Basically, if you don't have a stitch regulator, some machines have a stitch regulator foot that communicates with the machine that says, okay, she's going really fast, so we need to put more stitches out there per inch, or she's going really slow, so we need to put less stitches out per inch so that your stitches are consistent along the length of your free motion stitch. So if you don't have that, it becomes another art of practicing how fast you need to go, how slow you need to go, controlling your foot pedal with the movement of your hands. It's such a great art, and I really admire people who do it very, very well. We also have 2 classes you can take at Sulky, Fearless Free Motion 1 and Fearless Free Motion 2, and you can find those on our education resources at sulky.com. Eric Drexler teaches these classes, and you know, he makes it very, very doable. He really, really explains things in a way where you think to yourself, I could tackle this. And actually, that's how I started doing free motion. I was like, you know what? I can do this. And that's really all it takes. So I hope you're inspired to try it. If anything, you know, you can do little projects like this. And like I said, draw some witches' hats across your work and practice it. I mean, this is so small, no harm, no foul. If you have to rip out some stitches, you know, it's no big when you're working on something small scale. Okay. Let's see, there's some more questions going in. Bev says she wanted to learn more about this. I must be reading her mind. Well, I'm so glad. I still hear from people a lot who have never heard of the stick and stitch and have never tried it, and I'm just like, oh, it's a life changer. You will love it. Anytime there's a product that's going to make our lives easier, why not use it? You know, it's going to save you some time. It's going to make your sewing look more professional. It's going to make your quilting a lot more affordable. You won't have to send it out to a quilter to use a long arm machine when you can do some free motion. All right. Kathy has very little experience with free motion, only at a demo of a long arm machine. Those long arm machines are so fun. I really hope that we are able to go back to some of the fun sewing shows that are out there, because I love test driving all those long arm machines, writing my name, doing little hearts, doing little bubbles. And when you're walking by a booth at a sewing show, it's no fear, right? I can do this. And then you go home and you're like, okay, I have this small machine. How am I going to make this happen? So yeah, practice. Tried once, boy, what a mess I made, you know? But like I said, the more we practice, the better we get at it. So this is a great project to try it out. Just try the lettering, you know? The lettering is very simple block letters, line art letters. So you can really just go back and forth, up and down, different directions, side to side, get a feel for your machine and how it reacts to your free motion. So it does take some nerve, I'll admit. But you know, grab some fabric scraps, create a little mini quilt sandwich, and if it works out, turn it into a coaster. If it doesn't, it was a scrap. So again, no big deal. All right, lots of people have tried it. but again, need a lot of practice. So, consider, especially at this time when we are still social distancing, now is the time to really take a virtual class, to really dive in, spend some time getting to know the free motion capabilities on your sewing machine. So really take advantage of those sulky classes that are at your fingertips. Oh, interesting. So Donna was taught to do free motion with the feed dogs up and the machine at half speed. So that is interesting with the feed dogs up. So I'm just wondering how you go side to side and in different directions if your feed dogs are up, gripping the bottom of the fabric. So maybe you can tell us, Donna. That's an interesting technique. Oh, and Ursula, this is a great tip. So when doing free motion, lots of people use these kind of gripper gloves. Some people sell them as free motion gloves. Some people call them quilting gloves. And they have kind of a non-stick or like almost rubbery feeling to them, so that when you're gripping the fabric and you're going under the presser foot, again, it's not slipping out of your fingers, creating wrinkles or shifting, especially if you've pieced something and maybe there's partial pieces that are on the bias, so they're more prone to stretching. So yeah, I have heard of that too. Great idea. Okay, if I don't get to your question, be sure to email us at info@sulky.com and we will get back to you with specifics that are related to your needs or your particular project that you're working on right now. Because there are so many, I just can't keep up. Brenda says, do you have glow-in-the-dark thread that isn't pink when it isn't activated? Yes, we do. So our glowy thread, I believe there are 7 colors. So there's white, yellow, pink, green, blue, and like a peachish, orangish peachish color. They are those colors in the daytime, and then when they're active and glowing, they all glow this sort of greenish hue. So they all glow the same in the dark, but they look different in the light. So you can choose the color that best goes with your project fabric so that during the day it looks nice and pretty. Okay. Francine says, so 12 weight thread is heavier than a 30 weight thread. Yes, yes it is. So the lower the thread weight, the thicker it is. All right. So 12 weight's going to be heavyweight, 30 weight is mid to heavyweight, 40 weight is what we generally use for machine embroidery. It's what most designs are digitized for using 40 weight thread. We have rayon and polyester. Polydeco is what it's called for machine embroidery. Then 50 weight thread is what I like to use for a multi-purpose type thread. Piecing and quilting is really great for 50 weight thread. And then 60 weight thread is what we use in the bobbin for machine embroidery. Also, like I said, for very, very light touch quilting where you want the quilting to kind of disappear into the fabric, or for small lettering designs. All right. Okay, apologies. I'm trying to get through some more questions. Do you use regular bobbin thread when using the petite threads on the top? Yes. So like I just mentioned, 60 weight bobbin thread, sulky bobbin thread is 60 weight. Also, our poly light thread is 60 weight. So if you want to choose a thread that matches the 12 weight thread in your bobbin and not just the white, black neutrals that are available for sulky bobbin thread, you can use the poly light in the bobbin to match the colors. But the important thing is you want a lighter weight thread underneath so that the design does not create too much density and make it too difficult for your needle to penetrate through all the layers of thread, fabric, stabilizer, okay? and it's going to give you a nice balance stitch. So when a digitizer digitizes a design that's for heavier weight threads, they are taking into account your bobbin thread is lighter. So it's actually going to pull a little bit of your top thread towards the wrong side for that nice balanced tight looking stitch. Leslie says, please explain the weight number associated with thread. So hopefully I sort of explained it. I just gave the real down and dirty answer to that, and that is the lower number the thread weight, the thicker it is. Now there's more information on that, and you can get really technical about how much does it actually weigh and things like that at sulky.com, or if you're super interested, you can email us at info@sulky.com. I just don't really retain all that technical stuff. But for me, for my sewing, all I need to know is that the lower number, the thicker the thread, and the bigger the needle that I need. Okay. All right. Beverly says, I love it for my wool applique. She's talking about the 12 weight Petites thread. I recently purchased 7 of the Petite sets plus some individual Petite spools. Yeah, it's a great, great price as well. So when you think about all those skeins that you need for hand embroidery work, not only do they bunch up and tangle so easily when you're getting your strands out to thread your needle, but they also how much comes on a skein? It's been so long since I actually used one that I can't even remember, but I venture to guess there is more on a sulky spool, and if I am wrong, I apologize. But those skeins don't have very many on them. Okay, so especially right now when they are 25% off, grab some sets, grab some individual spools, get your collection of the colors going so that you have it on hand. All right. Yeah, keeping it all tidy. Like I mentioned, they have snap spools, just like all the sulky little snap spools. The 12 weight comes so that, here's my thread tail, right? If I go to throw this in my project bag, what's going to happen? I'm probably going to lose a good chunk of thread that's just unwinding from the spool. But I can gently pop up my snap spool, wind it in there, pop it down, and now it is nice and tidy. All right, so unlike the skein where you have to roll it around something or clip it or put it in a bag or something, when your handwork thread comes on a spool, that is another one of those advantages. All right, so again, lots of questions. I apologize, I cannot get through all of them. Ooh, Chris Eichner, I was just talking about you. I'm so glad you tuned in. All right, again, if you've asked a question and I haven't gotten back to you, I go through all of the questions on the Facebook Live feed and I will answer them once we are no longer live. If you miss the top of the show, you can always start again and start watching from the beginning. And you can enjoy any of our So What episodes on our YouTube channel. Again, that is youtube.com/sulkythread. And we are here every Tuesday, everybody, so please tune in. We've got more Halloween things coming up, and we're going to start getting ready for the end of the year holidays. So we've got Christmas, Hanukkah, all of those fun things that are great to break out the sparkles, break out the embellishments, and really go to town with some fun thread effects. So keep your questions coming. Again, email us if you have urgent concerns or things regarding a specific project at info@sulky.com. Take a look at all the links I put in the description of today's post. That will take you to all the products that I talked about today. Someone is asking about my cute little pin. This sewing machine pin is also at sulky.com. I love little stuff like this. So grab one of those, add it to your cart with your purchases today. Again, we've got a great sale. Cotton Petites and Stick and Stitch, 25% off. And I will be picking our giveaway winner tomorrow. So share the post, get your friends involved, and everybody who likes, comments, shares, otherwise engages with today's post is eligible to win our Halloween sampler, our set of 7 Sulky 12-weight cotton Petites threads in colors, all great for Halloween. So enjoy the project today and let me know how it's coming along for you. If you post projects on social media, be sure to tag us and use the hashtag #SewBetterWithSulky so we can see what you're up to. So thanks again for joining me today, guys, and I will see you next week.